Hi everyone, welcome back to iConquistador. Today, we're talking about GPT 5.2. And more importantly, we're talking about why the reaction to it feels off. Because, on paper, this should have been a victory lap. OpenAI released GPT 5.2 and immediately followed it with some of the strongest benchmark numbers we've ever seen from a general-purpose model. Records across professional reasoning, major jumps in coding, long context performance that finally feels usable at real scale, vision that's noticeably more reliable, an agent-style tool calling that looks closer to production, not just demo, by nearly every measurable metric. GPT 5.2 is a meaningful step forward from GPT 5.1, and yet, the response online wasn't excitement, it wasn't celebration, it wasn't even the usual lab versus lab debate. Instead, what followed was something stranger. Skepticism, irritation, jokes, distrust, and in some corners, outright backlash. Reddit threads full of people saying they don't care about benchmarks anymore. Developers saying, cool, I'll believe it when I feel it. Longtime users saying they resubscribed and still don't trust it. And that's the part worth paying attention to. Because this reaction isn't coming from people who don't understand the numbers. Most of the critics have read the blog post, looked at the charts, and understand how large some of these gains actually are, which makes this moment more interesting, not less. So, let's get one thing out of the way early. GPT 5.2 is genuinely stronger than GPT 5.1. This isn't just a version bump or a cosmetic update. The gains are real. On professional task benchmarks, the model now matches or exceeds human workers across a majority of evaluated occupations. Tasks like building spreadsheets, creating presentations, producing schedules, diagrams, and business artifacts. In aggregate, GPT 5.2 thinking matches or beats human professionals on roughly 70% of evaluated tasks. That's a dramatic jump from the previous version. And when you factor in speed and cost, the difference becomes even more stark. The model completes the same work more than 10 times faster than human experts at a fraction of the cost. In software engineering, it sets a new high watermark on harder benchmarks designed to resist shortcutting and memorization. The result in practice is fewer half-finished patches, more end-to-end fixes, and less babysitting when working on large codebases. Science benchmarks show similar movement. Graduate-level reasoning, competition math, frontier problem sets, and then there's ARC-style abstract reasoning. This is the category that made a lot of researchers pause, because the jump here isn't incremental, it's a slope change. A move from struggling with novelty to handling it at a level that looks qualitatively different. Long context reasoning also takes a real leap. We're talking about models that can now hold together across massive documents without collapsing halfway through. Contract, report, transcript, multi-file projects. The system keeps track, integrates information, and doesn't lose the plot. Vision improves as well. Error rates drop sharply. The model understands interfaces, charts, dashboards, and spatial relationships instead of just labeling fragments. Tool calling quietly improves too. Multi-turn workflows, API usage, customer support style tasks. The system holds together across long chains of action. So no, this isn't a weak release. This may be the strongest general-purpose system OpenAI has ever shipped, which makes the backlash even more telling. Because if intelligence alone were the metric, this would have been universally praised, but something else is happening. And to understand it, we need to talk about expectations. The first friction point is something many users feel but struggle to articulate. Benchmark fatigue. For years now, every major AI release arrives with a wall of charts. Each chart declares state-of-the-art. Each curve goes up and to the right. And at some point, those numbers stopped persuading people emotionally, not because benchmarks are useless, but because users learn they don't always map cleanly to day-to-day experience. Phrases like maximum reasoning effort or high reasoning mode don't trigger excitement anymore. They trigger suspicion. Is this what I actually get? Or is this a lab-tuned configuration designed to win an eval? People joke about models being trained to score well, rather than feel smarter. They question whether best-case runs are being compared to competitors. Normal settings? Even when these criticisms are oversimplified, the sentiment behind them is real. Benchmarks used to signal progress. Now, they often signal distance between what's measured and what users feel. The second friction point is trust damage from past releases. GPT-5 and GPT 5.1 left a mark. Many users remember the initial excitement, followed by subtle changes, throttling, refusals, behavior shifts, what people perceived as nerfs. Whether every complaint was fair, almost no matter anymore. What matters is the expectation that formed. Many users now approach new releases defensively. They assume the best version won't last. They assume something will be dialed back. They assume today's behavior won't match next month's. So, when GPT 5.2 arrives with impressive numbers, the first reaction isn't, wow, it's for how long? Once people expect degradation, improvements feel temporary by default. Even real gains get filtered through doubt. The third friction point, and arguably the most important one, is where GPT 5.2 focused its improvements. Nearly every major gain points in the same direction: professional, enterprise grade, economically valuable work. Spreadsheets, documents, coding, analysis, agents, tool use. These are the tasks that justify enterprise contracts and API spend, and GPT 5.2 is undeniably better at them. At the same time, many users feel the things they personally care about did not improve at the same pace. Conversational warmth, creative flexibility, the feeling that you're collaborating rather than interacting with a system enforcing policies. A lot of people describe the model as colder, more structured, more corporate, better at doing the job, worse at feeling pleasant to work with. That doesn't mean OpenAI made a mistake. It means they made a choice. GPT 5.2 feels optimized to replace a junior analyst, not to be a creative companion. And for a large portion of users, that shift is uncomfortable. Layer on top of that ongoing frustration around safety friction. Fewer lectures, fewer unnecessary blocks, more trust, and the intelligence gains don't fully land emotionally. Even a very smart model doesn't feel smart if it keeps stopping you mid-flow. Timing matters too. This release didn't happen in a vacuum. Competitive pressure increased, priorities shifted, features got delayed, and GPT 5.2 arrived quickly. That doesn't make it fake or sloppy, but it does make it feel reactive rather than visionary. Users can sense that difference. A model released to defend a position feels different from one released to redefine the landscape. And this is why the reaction matters. Not because GPT 5.2 failed, but because it shows the criteria people now use to judge AI has changed. Raw intelligence is no longer enough. Charts aren't enough. Being technically correct isn't enough. People care about how a model feels to use, how predictable it is, how much control they have, and whether the relationship feels stable. The backlash isn't ignorance. It's pushback. It's users saying, our expectations moved faster than our satisfaction, and that might be the most important signal of all. AI is starting to split into two paths. One path leads toward enterprise systems optimized for productivity, efficiency, and economic output. GPT 5.2 clearly advances that path. The other path is about human-friendly intelligence, systems that feel collaborative, flexible, and trustworthy in everyday use. The real question going forward isn't whether models will keep getting smarter. They will. The question is whether the next generation can close the gap between capability and comfort. Because if intelligence keeps rising while trust stays flat, reactions like this won't be rare. They'll be normal. GPT 5.2 might be one of the smartest systems OpenAI has ever released, but the response to it shows that intelligence alone no longer defines success, and that might be the most important lesson of this release. If you found this breakdown useful, hit the like button, share it with someone thinking about where AI is heading, and subscribe for daily deep dives into what actually matters. This is AI Conquistador, and I'll see you in the next one.